Sup, yos?
Hi, here we
Well,
are.
welcome to round one of the World Championship Finals 2013. Brought to you by Late Night Blitz.
Yeah, so I am calm, and
Don't you think?
you are Fusion.
I am. I am Fusion.
Yeah,
Greetings.
let's do this.
Let's go.
So,
Go, go,
okay,
go.
bit of background for this match. It's in India, where Anand is from. Bit
Yep.
weird, but whatever. Carlsen is 95 points, or what is he, 95 points? I think
There's
he's about
a lot of
a
points.
lot of points ahead of Anand in terms of his ELO rating.
But Elo means nothing in a match play.
Well,
Right?
we'll see.
We'll see. Okay. Let's just bring you the match straight away. Because it's really early here. Super, super early. It's
Well, for late
like
night blitz, it is, yeah.
it's like early morning blitz. Oh, what did you call? You said
I was
free
predicting
move.
D4 from both players actually. Just because in World Championship matches that's the most common move, I guess. And I thought it would suit Carlsen's play because I think Carlsen is going to try and play more mid to late game focused and just play a solid opening. Um, as it is with Knight f3, he's probably going to get into some kind of D4 position. He's just going to play a few more moves later. Um, and with Anand, I think he can kind of play anything, but based on his last World Championship matches, he's always kind of played D4 predominantly.
But he starts off with knight f3, and what do you think Anand will do? He's gonna play something normal, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can play lots of things here. You can play Knight f6 to mirror. You can play c5 if you're a Sicilian player, which is what I play. Because then d4 is less of an option because you can just take it off. So generally you get e4 and you just transpose into a kind of position like that. The most solid way to play is just d5 because by playing knight f3 move 1, generally speaking, white isn't looking for that transposition into a Sicilian. He's looking for more of a Reti kind of setup where you have knight f3, g3, bishop g2 castles. So you have a bishop along that g2 to a8 diagonal, and if you have a pawn on d5, that obviously blunts that, and you can back up with c6 and just kind of support that center.
Maybe they had some idea before the game to just play knight f3, knight f6, knight g1, knight g8. Let's just go back to the hotel because it's too hot here.
Well, yeah, you were in India for a couple of months, so you know what the heat is like.
Yep. As soon as I walked out, it steamed up. They're just pretty screwed up.
Yeah. I don't know if
Well,
you've seen any of the actual live stream of it, but the glass for the like reporters is really close to the board, and all the Indian reporters are just like rammed up against it by the other things. They have police pushing them back and so on. It's kind of seems like it's way too close to me.
probably. So d5 is what we get, which is good. And then here we go.
Yeah, so Anand's just playing solid really, and obviously Carlsen wants to take it to a later game. So in the opening, kind of makes sense, but I was still pretty disappointed with it because even if Carlsen isn't a big opening guy, he has a whole team of players who have, been able to work on it for months. So you should be able to get, I would think, something with at least some white edge compared to some kind of Reti. I don't particularly think Anand will have studied Carlsen's Reti very much. I mean, he's played it before, but not very often. So I'm sure he'd have just had, a bit of quick prep on, just play solid against it and you'll be fine. So I'm hoping Carlsen's going to deviate from this in his future white games, but we'll see.
I mean, isn't this is like bog standard lightning opening, right?
Yeah, I play this in 1 minute when I play.
So maybe
Um,
he's just been basing his repertoire off this. He's got really bored, played some 1-0 and thought, I'll play this against Anand. That'll be fine, right? Just
yeah,
blitz it out. So the time control for this match is 2 hours for 40 moves, then another hour for the next 20 moves, and then if they ever get that far, you get an extra 15 minutes, and you get a 30-second increment.
yeah. And they're playing 12 games, is it?
12 games, which is like the shortest World Championship match in history, probably. But
So it's like first to 6.5, or after that, if 6-all, they'll have rapid tie breaks, I guess.
yeah,
Which
fair
may be
enough.
where the match actually gets more exciting if we get that far. Cause
Be a bit of an anticlimax to be the classical world champion on a let's tiebreak.
Yeah, but that's how Anand won it last time. He took it to the rapid games.
Yeah, well, you can argue that he was already world champion then, so
Yeah.
he didn't. He didn't. He was just defending.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
Yeah, so d4 was played here, move 4, because if you don't play that then, e5 is a possibility, which isn't necessarily bad for white. You'd play a system whereby you play a quick c4 and try and undermine the centre, but this is a much more kind of principled way to play, and it's just guaranteeing that white's got his share of space in the centre.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
C6. That's pretty solid. Looks pretty solid to me.
Yeah. Just blunting the bishop's diagonal. You can play other systems where you play like knight f6 first, and then you're looking for some kind of e6, c5 breaks. But they can be a bit vulnerable to a quick c4 or something from white, because obviously then you have very little against that bishop on g2. Whereas white still has his d4 pawn, which you can support with e3. And I mean, I guess you can say that you can support blacks with e6, but white's always this tempi ahead, especially in symmetrical positions. So he's always going to be able to make that first capture, which makes a big difference.
Knight f6, b3. That's probably one of the unusual method, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's second most common, but it's really a sideline. It's like, I think there's about 1,000 games here where white plays c4, but b3's maybe been played 100 times. I mean, the idea is just that you fianchetto the bishop, and then you have more control over e5, so again, you're kind of following this plan of taking it to a later game, but c4 is more principled, it's more attacking, it's more, I think it offers more for white.
Yeah, I guess it's just white being super safe. He doesn't want to blunder on the first game of the World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I mean, you have a whole team of people working for 6 months, and they come up with 6b3 in a reti. I don't know.
And disclosed his seconds, right?
I'm not sure, actually. I know that Liko's
Yeah, that's the one I know. I think
for Anand.
Yeah, whereas Carlsen has kept it quiet, probably because he doesn't have any.
Maybe he's just saving money. And he figured he'd play this.
Yeah,
I don't think Anand would have expected this, but I don't think that's necessarily an advantage when the position is so already
boring.
Yeah, I mean, it's boring, and it doesn't offer white an obvious way to progress.
It's like, if I was black, I'd be pretty annoyed by this opening, just because I want to win every game, and this is
you
boring.
Would be, but I think Anand,
but it's equal, right? So that's perfect for Anand.
Anand would be extremely happy, I'd have thought. I would have thought Anand would have been worried if Carlsen had played like the first 20 moves of some known d4 opening really quickly. I mean, he'd have prepped for that, but you know that he's come up with something down the line. Here, there's not really anything you can come up with down the line, because you're just going to be playing the same c4 plan, just later, when it's less dangerous, because black's more developed already.
I mean, this is probably how I would, if I was Carlsen, this is probably how I would prepare for World Championship if I had his innate chess skills, because I can't be bothered to prepare billions of openings for a match. But he's actually playing for the World Championship, so he probably should do a little bit of work.
I mean, I'm probably being unfair. I'm sure he has done a lot of work, but
I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah, maybe he did a lot of work and then just came to the conclusion that it was too risky against Anand's team or something. Or they just played something, decided on it, and it decided it was fine.
So, b2 is pretty standard. Bishop f5 looks pretty normal to me. I'll just keep going until you see something interesting.
Okay.
I mean, c4 looks
It's
kind of normal. I guess there's no point taking because it was take back. So knight bd7 is played.
Yeah, you just want to kind of develop your pieces, and now as white, you kind of have this option. You have knight c3, which looks like the most logical, but it can leave c4 very weak, or you can play something like knight d2, which again is developing, but it's not in the place you'd want it to be. It's not looking at the center as much. It's kind of, you're going to have to play some setup along with e3 and queen e2, and it's just going to be a slower attack. Maybe you could play knight h4 here, for example, because that would attack the bishop. On something like bishop e4, you could play f3. So probably black's going to just move his bishop back to e6, and you can play some setup then with knight d2 because that supports c4, and then you're looking for some f3 e4 push, so like taking some of the center, which is, you know, some option. It's not necessarily better for white, but it's definitely not worse, and it's just a different kind of way to play. If he has prepared something and he wants something different, what is the most logical moves that Anand's pretty much going to expect in the position.
Indeed.
So knight c3 is played, but the problem with this is you can take on c4 and then it's really weak, and there's no real good way to protect it.
It's like you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, I have seen this game already, but it's what I would have been thinking if I played the game.
And then knight b6, which seems to be quite a good move. Attacking that weakness immediately.
Yeah. Because, I mean, how are you going to protect it? You could play queen b3, but then bishop e6. And it forces you into knight d2, and then d4 hangs. So you can't really do that.
We can play out this variation on the board.
Yep.
So then you're like, oh no, c4.
I guess you can play knight e5 instead of knight d2, but the same problem happens with a queen takes d4.
Yeah. So I guess the only move is d5, but then you're going to lose it anyway, I guess.
Yeah, black's got just one more piece, basically.
I mean, I guess you take.
Yep.
And then take. And then take.
Yeah, that's the right knight to take with as well, so we don't lose b7. So, yeah.
And then I guess probably got the bishop as well, which is annoying.
Yeah, I'd probably take the queen here just to leave the bishop in the middle. I mean, you could take with the bishop as well, actually, and then you're getting tempi on the queen. But likely you're going to end up trading g7 for b2 anyway, so... Actually, maybe taking with the bishop is better, because once the queen moves, if it goes, for example, rook c2, queen c2, then you have rook c8, gaining another tempi on it, so... You can kind of complete your development quickly. You're up a pawn. Black's winning, probably.
Black is winning. So, that doesn't look good. So, what's the only other solution? I guess you have to play c5 here.
Yeah,
just to get out the way.
You could play knight e5, but then, you know, maybe just knight f d7, something like that. And then you're undermining that knight, and once that knight's gone, obviously they can take on c4. So, yeah, I feel like c5 is almost forced here.
So c5, and then obviously has to move it, and logical place, knight c4, attacking the bishop.
Yeah, so we're only 11 moves in, and Carlsen's already spent time putting that bishop on a weird square because he spent the time to play b3 first, then bishop b2, and he's going to have to either undevelop it immediately or potentially give up the two bishops with, say, queen b3. And queen b3 is probably okay, but you do have to be wary of bishop e5 and things like that. Bishop e6, sorry. With like the discovery.
Yes, indeed. E6. That would be kind of annoying to be faced with.
Yeah,
and plus,
because
you don't want to give up the dark square bishop really, because you've got your pawns on c5, d4, and probably eventually e3. And then I guess there's breaks with e5 for black, and it's just going to be annoying.
yeah, exactly. If black ever manages to trade off the bishops and then play e5 and can retake there, c5 is going to be really weak in the endgame. So obviously that would be good for black. So if I was playing this as white, I would play bishop c1 because I want to keep those bishops, which I think is what was played in the game. But I think it kind of says that black is already, if not slightly better, then at least equal, because his pieces are developed, I would say, better, because all his minor pieces are developed, whereas this bishop is now undeveloped. He's also got a pawn structure which is more flexible than white's, I would say, because he has enough control of the e4 square to whereby white can't push. d4 is currently backwards, and the only way he can stop that is by playing e3, which again doesn't allow e4. And you know, that knight on c4 is potentially a big problem later, because if black can play b5 at some point, then it'll be completely stuck there, and white's going to have to spend more time trying to remove that knight with something like knight d2. And again, he needs to first prepare that via an e3 to protect d4 or something.
So knight e5 is apparently a novelty in this position, but I guess most moves work quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, knight d5 looks normal to me. It may be a novelty, but I'm not sure how much, whether they would actually have known that going into it. I feel like if Carlsen's playing this variation where he's already playing bishop c1 back, that wasn't part of his home prep, because it just seems
yeah. Why would you invest the time to play those moves if you're just going to move bishop back to c1?
Yeah.
It's just if I were Anand at this point, I'd be extremely happy, a big smile on my face, and I'd just be smiling at Carlsen.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing I said with b5 earlier, that actually works better with this way that Anand's done it, because now if you trade knights, you actually take c takes d, so that knight is supported by the d pawn instead of a b pawn, and that's actually probably better because it's closer to the bishop on g2, so it blocks out that diagonal even more than otherwise, and gains more central control. It helps stop an e4 push later on. It's just, I would say, all looking good for black, really. Not as in he's a lot better, but you're 12 moves into the first World Championship match, and you're definitely not worse.
He's got no problems, really.
Yeah.
I mean, what are his weaknesses? He's got a knight on c4, which is kind of exposed.
Yeah, but I think white is almost forced into either the trade of knights here, or, well, yeah, he is forced into the trade. Doesn't necessarily have to take on d5, but he does have to support the knight on c3 if he doesn't. I mean, the potential weakness in black's position is b7, but you can't exploit that with the bishop on f5 because it covers the b1 square. And again, you could potentially play something like b5 later on. And then even if he takes en passant, you can play a takes b and then b5 next move. And it's very hard to get to c6 when there's a knight on c4, because it just blocks.
Okay, that's good. So queen b3, pretty much, well, I mean, I'm sure he wasn't planning on doing this at the start, but he has kind of has to do it.
Yeah,
protect the knight on c3, also attacking the knight on c4.
you could take on d5 instead, but I think then just pawn takes, like we mentioned, and I think black is actually slightly better there because
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, that knight is going to be too much for pain. So after this, I mean, there's a few options. Knight a5 was played, but you could also, you know, well, okay, first you have to play this, I guess, rather than, yeah, just play knight a5 first so that the knight is protected by the queen, and then after the queen move, which is going to be to, you know, a3 or b2, either way, you have the potential of going knight c4 back, but after that you basically have the option as black, where you can play b6 and decide to play on, or you can just play knight c4 back and kind of pretty much force the draw if you want it.
Let's see what it decides to do. So, queen b3, knight a5, queen a3, knight c4. And that's it. It's over. It's down. It's finished. Finito. Kaput. Fin. End. Done.
Yeah.
No more moves.
So, I mean, the other option instead of queen a3 in this position would have been queen a4 instead of going for this last repetition as white as Carlsen. And then after take c3 we take on c4 and you have that kind of thing.
Let's have a look at that on the board. I mean, this is disappointing really for Carlsen, but like a moral victory for Anand. Just get the draw, the quick draw as black, expend minimal effort, and he's already got half the point on the board.
I mean, you basically played 13 unique moves as black in the first match of the World Championship and got a quick draw, so you'll have to be really happy with that. So, yeah,
so happy are the fans, though, I would imagine.
No.
Fans like you, me, and everyone else listening to this broadcast.
Very disappointing. That's what
Very disappointing.
So yeah,
we got up. This match starts at 1 p.m. local time, which is 9:30 in the morning in the UK, which is about 6 hours before we normally get up.
I even set my alarm for 11 a.m. today just to guarantee that I saw some of the second game, and it was already over. So,
spoilers.
Okay, so this last variation, let's just go through it. So after queen a3 here.
Go on then. Move the pieces.
Oh, can I do it? Okay, so queen a3, knight c4, then you can do this queen a4 instead, and if we take here on c3, which is the other option for black, then white could take this. So this is kind of, you know, getting back some material, but the problem here is that you have a kind of tricky line where I think black can actually take on d4 with the bishop, and you think, oh, well, actually, you know, white must be winning his upper piece, but after this you have this, and you win back the queen. And so, yeah.
So yeah, black's 2 pawns up.
So yeah, you basically have this. We have 2 minor pieces against 2 minor pieces, and yeah, black is 2 pawns up. So that's pretty much over, which is why
winning.
Yeah, which is why he had to go that way. In fact, even from here, let's say white makes some other move, this can come, and the only move is this, and then you can just move it. And well, actually, here you could do this, but the point is, Carlsen obviously thought he couldn't do that because of that variation, which meant that he felt like he had to go for the repetition. And he was probably right, but I think it was the result of poor opening preparation, really, with this, you know, bishop b2 line and bishop c1 back and so on. I really think you should be trying for more in a game where preparation is obviously going to be so important.
Okay, so I guess we can wrap up this first game here, as it was pretty not exciting in the slightest. Well, hopefully we'll see a better game tomorrow or later on today.
Yeah.
Technically.
We're going to try and do this for every round. So hopefully we'll have some really good ones later on.
And if we happen to be up in time for one of the matches, we can do a live guess the move for the start. It's going to be pretty sick because Khan will choose d4. I would choose any other move, and then I will win. Pretty sure that's going to happen.
Okay.
So, see you next time.
See ya.